Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, The Dynamic Duo, Why the PMS and CRM Integration is Essential to Guest Engagement, presented by StayNTouch and CENDYN. I'm your host, Frigola, and I'm joined by my presenters today. First up is Senior Vice President of Global Marketing, Michael Bennett. Michael oversees global marketing, sales development, and creatives at CENDYN. He has over 22 years of international management experience working with companies such as White Lodging, KSL, Knight Rider, the Nature Conservancy, and Eastman Kodak. His specialties lie in marketing, e-commerce, digital and mobile implementations, all with a proven track record of success. Michael focuses on managing with an emphasis on profitable growth through an increase in CLV, while constantly reiterating that creative marketing is only successful when held accountable to the results it produces. Joining us from StayNTouch is Sales Director Hayat Adhanom. Hayat has been in the cloud SaaS space for over 8 years and working with industries from healthcare to education and now in hospitality for the last year and a half with StayNTouch. He loves working for companies ahead of the technology curve that are always displaying foresight in their respective industries and disrupt the paradigm via innovation. As a sales director at StayNTouch, he oversees growing partnerships in the U.S., Southwest, and Western Europe. Before we get to the first discussion point, I'd like our audience to first participate in 2 back-to-back poll questions. I'm launching the first one now. How would you assess the integration between your PMS and your CRM? Give you guys about 20 seconds here, and then I'll launch the results. All right, give you guys another 10 seconds. Closing the poll now and sharing the results. How would you assess the integration between your PMS and your CRM? 53% of you say the systems are not fully integrated, and hopefully we'll be able to address all that and more in this webinar. 37% of you guys say that our systems are integrated, but data is not communicated well. And then 5% split between systems are not integrated at all and systems are integrated and allow better guest engagement. All right, move over to the second poll question here. In your hotel, who is the biggest influencer when deciding what new systems your property will use? Give you guys another 10 to 15 seconds to complete this one. All right, closing the poll, sharing the results. Looks like, for the most part, it's the hotel owner or operator. Coming in second is a general manager. All righty, so we will move forward into the webinar agenda before we pass it over to our presenters today. Today we'll be discussing what information should be passed between the PMS and the CRM, how incorporating mobile touchpoints on property can enhance guest engagement and capture important data, how to drive more revenue and increase guest satisfaction with targeted marketing campaigns. And of course, we will turn things over to the audience for questions, but you are free to go ahead and send in those questions or comments at any point during the webinar. All right, what information should be passed back and forth between the PMS and the CRM? Michael, do you want to take it from here?
Sure, thank you. So data silos, not a problem you can ignore. So we know that hotels have a difficult time coming up with that single representation of a guest. There's lots of various systems. It's frustrating. We've got PMS and POS and C-Res and spa and golf. You know, depending on the size of your hotel or if you're with a brand, all those things are problems. They're all silos. But the reality is that when we don't pull them together, service goes down, marketing suffers, and guest retention plummets. So today we're going to talk about what a good integration can mean and what it can deliver. And when you actually put these things together, the PMS and CRM being the two most important, the results you can achieve. Next slide, please. So just some highlights, and we're going to dive into these here in a little bit in depth. But you know, some of the benefits you can get. You know, really, it's not just about marketing. We're going to talk about that today. But you know, engaging the guest at the right moment. That could be at the desk. It could be at concierge. It could be on the phone. But personalization, big hot topic. You know, getting the data correct allows you to do that. Focusing on your best guests, which leads to things like lookalike modeling. Being able to find more guests that look like your best guests, behavior-based upselling, using data to drive your decision-making, so instead of sort of emotional-based decision-making, and ultimately, you know, we want to increase the guest loyalty and drive higher revenues. Next slide. So some key data points on the CRM side. Again, I kind of touched on this a little bit, but there's all these different systems out there. Your central data warehouse, marketing engine, your loyalty data. There's all the third-party data from social data that's out there that's publicly available that you can append to your guest profile, so you understand. You know, do you have a social influencer in-house? Are they going to post about your property, and how do you manage that appropriately? You know, interest data from groups like Axiom, American Express, et cetera. And then, you know, what's their propensity to spend? And do they have intent? Groups like Adara and Sojourn can provide intent data to actually tell you those people are coming to market. Your GSS, your online sentiment, TripAdvisor, et cetera, all that data. And then your traditional data as well, your CRS, call center, et cetera. All those are key data points that we use on the CRM side to pull and to build that single point of truth, that rich guest profile. Next slide.
So I'm going to take this one. Hey, Michael, great points. So when it comes to the property management system, you want a system that is pretty flexible when it comes to capturing key data points and contributing to that rich guest profile that Michael was just mentioning. These consist of reservation profiles, historical data. If you have multiple properties, you want to be able to aggregate that information across all of your portfolio and be able to see the true guest stay information, the historical information. You also want to be able to promote room inventory when you're looking at groups and things like that, and be able to communicate that back and forth between the CRM and the PMS. And then being able to communicate things like rates and pricing, so you can see historically where guests are, you know, converting, and if there is any kind of correlations when it comes to specific seasonality, things like that. And then also understanding the true spend of the guest, right? So when we look at the amenities, all the add-ons, you know, feeding that information into the CRM so you guys can create, or so the hotel can create communication around the guest preferences, around their true experience, including, you know, the room that they stayed in, but also the amenities that they're interested in and consistently purchase.
All right, thanks so much for that, Michael and Hyatt. Now that we know what kind of data has to be pushed back and forth between the PMS and the CRM and the importance of collecting that data, let's kind of go into how to incorporate mobile touch points throughout the guest stay so that you can effectively capture that data, at the same time give guests the type of quality interaction that they really yearn for at this point.
Right. Thanks, Free. Appreciate that. So yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, if you're not considering mobile, or, you know, you don't have a mobile strategy in 2018 as a hotel, then you're really leaving money on the table and leaving data on the table as well, right? And if we think about behavior and we talk about who your guests are, whether they're a millennial all the way up to a baby boomer, every single one of your guests has a mobile device when they walk on to your property, right? And you know, these stats here kind of display, you know, this medium that you have to be addressing when looking at the digital guest, and really addressing a crucial part of the guest journey and a big part of how they interact with your hotel, you know, pre-stay, during their stay, and post-stay. So I think that all this really adds up to is, really considering micro moments and, thinking about how to increase micro moments with your guest, right? And, one of the things that, and just to kind of define micro moments, it's a Google term, and that is when people reflexively turn to a device. So this is every second of the day for most people. It's probably happening now to some of the attendees that are on our webinar. But these moments are intent-rich moments where decisions are made and preferences are formed. So, I think a key point of any hotel marketing strategy from the PMS all the way to the CRM is increasing micro moments. So you know more about the guests, their behavior, and then can communicate more effectively with them. And so when we think about the data behind this mobile opportunity, what we're seeing right now is that, your guests expect the ability to engage via mobile devices, and, really think that, if you're able to master that mobile guest journey and master that communication, that process with the guests, you're going to see an appreciation from the guests, not only in terms of giving you information that you can leverage in your CRM, but also you're going to see ancillary revenue throughout the guest lifecycle, from pre to staying at the hotel to post stay. So I think all the data adds up to a glaring opportunity for any hotel. I will say there's a funny commercial that was out. It was probably a couple months ago. It's probably been out for about a year now, and it's with the guy Putty from Seinfeld. I'm sure many people remember him. And it's a nationwide car rental commercial, right? And he's walking through the lot at the kind of the car rental area, and he's walking through and he's saying, "Well, I could talk to somebody if I wanted to, but I don't want to," right? And he just walks up to his car, gets in, and goes on with his trip. And I think that really represents choice, and that really represents the modern and 2018 and beyond guests, giving them that ability to really dictate their experience and knowing that that's their preference, giving them that option. So, I think technology is something that it has to be accounted for when it comes to the guest journey and the guest experience. And then, how that ties to the CRM is something that, that Michael's going to cover in a little bit here. But in terms of, looking at mobile check-in and check out, you want to see it as an opportunity. You want to see it as a way to increase those micro moments, like we said, but also really understand the behavior of the guest, right? And understand where they're spending money, why they're spending money, reducing friction when it comes to the guest experience, making it more seamless. Get more data during that mobile check-in experience, where you can say, this guest really, every time they stay with us, is deciding to get a hot stone massage. So we're going to promote that to the guests even before they arrive. Or this guest is checking in early every time they come. Maybe we should, offer them that or offer them a promotion for checking in early or something like that. So you're just really getting more engagement out of the guests when you provide things like mobile check-in and mobile checkout.
And so let me chime in here. So, you talk about increasing those mobile touch points and reducing friction, but does it reduce friction if you have to download an app in order to do, a mobile check-in or a mobile checkout?
I think that if you download an app, and again, a lot of the bigger brands have pretty comprehensive apps. I mean, I think that you want something that's light and lean for the guests, and something that's easy for them to use. So I think that it's preferable to use like a browser-based mobile check-in, which is something that StayNTouch provides, that is a lot more likely to be used by a guest, because you don't have to create a username. It's just based on a reservation. So I think the more efficient, the faster you can make it for the guests, the more likely you'll see to convert them to use mobile check-in, and also get more information so that you can communicate with them more effectively going forward. And just talking back to that Putty from Seinfeld story, right? Business travelers, they want to get to where they're going. They want to make, they want it to be seamless. When you think about automation, you think about the opportunity for preemptively engaging with the guests before they arrive. That's really where mobile check-in comes in, is that you're allowing yourself to be more proactive. And then for the guests, they're really able to personalize their experience and reduce that friction when checking in. And part of that is you getting more information from the guest, knowing more about the guest when they arrive, when they, what their preferences are, that can funnel into the CRM and any of your communication channels. And then I think, we think about, just consumer behavior in general, and, having a mobile presence is really a prerequisite for 10 years ago, right? I mean, I think if we think about not having a mobile presence with your guests, you're really at a deficit, right? And it's an opportunity not only to drive convenience for them, personalization, but also to reinforce your commitment to their experience. So anything that you do right now, and we're all consumers here, any product or service that you use on a consistent basis, it allows for a mobile experience, right? So if you're not doing that now, again, you're leaving money and you're leaving data on the table. So, when you're looking at a mobile PMS, right, and some of the benefits of having those capabilities to engage with the guests via their mobile devices, that pre-arrival engagement, it also gives you an opportunity, even when they come on property, to capture more information. So one of the things that here at StayNTouch we've really done is simplify the check-in process, so that instead of clicking 15 times to check in a guest, you're clicking 3 times. So that gives you more of an opportunity to learn more about your guest, right? Why are they here? Do they come here, once a month? Are they here for business? Are they here for leisure? Are they part of a group? So now within StayNTouch, you're capturing that, and that's funneling to your CRM like a CENDYN, where you're able to say, okay, this is how we communicate with this guest. This is how often they come to this area of the country or to the world, what have you. So it gives you guys more flexibility, and capturing the email, that's something that you can make a part of your check-in process if you don't have that email already. Again, the preferences, knowing that guest so that you can personalize your communication, create that automation of lifecycle marketing based on those preferences that are captured and transferred or communicated to the CRM. And then, the behavior, what do they do? Are they, are they a spa guest? Do they love going to the spa? Do they like playing golf? Do they like going on tours? So that, again, preemptively, you're communicating with them, right? Saying, hey, we know you're coming in back, in town in about a month, or it seems like you come here every month. Would you like to, stay with us, and here are some of the amenities that we have that you've liked in the past. So I think that that's really at the crux of value when it comes to the PMS. That should be a focus when you're looking at a PMS. Don't just look at it as a way to capture reservations. Look at it as a engine of data that feeds systems like a CRM that allows for that automation of communication and connecting with your guests.
All right, thank you so much for that, Hyatt. I think those are some really good points, and really just hitting home the point that bringing mobility to your property not only brings more value to the guests by giving them convenience and a choice as to how they're being serviced, but also brings value to the hotel, because at every interaction, you're giving yourself a better opportunity to capture key moments and key data that can then be filtered to these other core systems like the CRM. All right, so with that said, we'll pass things over to Michael, who's going to discuss how to drive more revenue and increase guest satisfaction with targeted marketing campaigns. Michael?
Great, thank you. We go to the next slide. So we think about hotel marketing really with 3 pillars, and I use the word pillars, not silos, because all 3 of these have to work together to really make an impact. So the first one we think about is data. So, and today we'll talk about, we're talking about the PMS, or what's that mean from an enhanced guest profile standpoint, and then the action. So what are we doing with that data? And we'll talk about marketing automation. And the last piece is the impact. So that includes measurement. And then, there's a lot of buzz around the phrase AI. And we actually think about that a little differently. Instead of artificial, we think about it as actual intelligence. So how are we using what we learned to make smarter business decisions moving forward. So next slide, please. So let's talk about the profile. So I mentioned this earlier, but we believe that sort of a singular global profile is that single version of truth, and that's pulling all that disparate data together. So and that's from all different phases of the journey here. You can see you've got a planning phase, book, pre-stay arrival, retain, etc. So it's pre, post, and during, and from all those different pieces. And when you pull that all together, and then you marry it with third-party data, you get these really rich guest profiles. And that really helps you understand what your best guests look like. And that can be different, midweek business traveler versus a weekend leisure traveler, or a group traveler, or Smurf business. Whatever the business type is, you can develop personas, best guest profiles for each of those, and then leverage them to not only talk to your best guests, obviously you want more of their business, but also then go find more people that look just like them. Next slide, please. So marketing automation, right? So now we're talking about the targeting. So we know who our most valuable guests are. And so we've got this data warehouse. We've got all this data coming in. And continue forward. It'll do a little animation here. So we just talked about this, right? So we've got these most valuable guests up on top, and we know exactly what they look like, what they're worth, what they're, how often do they stay, what do they spend, and what's their lifetime value. And then we go out and we marry that with third-party data, and we get these most valuable prospects. And then forward arrow, please. And one more time. There you go. So then we get these then we use, that's where the technology, sort of the machine learning, machine automation comes in. Then we use email, could be mobile messaging, could be mobile web, as Hy was talking about, could be through an app, social media, display targeting, retargeting, etc. But the point being is that through these best guest profiles and automation, these rule engines, is that you're targeting these guests that are high value. So you're trying to get the good ones to come back and find more that look just like them. Next slide, please. So then we get into sort of predictive analytics, and I just teed this up. So we've got this guest behavior that we're monitoring throughout the travel journey. And on the head is that your PMS can capture data throughout the cycle. It's not just a reservation capture engine. And you pull that data through the travel journey, and then again with third-party data, using that rules engine. So what do we know about the business? At CENDYN, our business engine, our rules engines are based on decades of hotel experience. It's not just a technology platform. It's really how does hospitality work? How's a revenue manager think about this versus a marketing manager, or a front desk versus a GM, or an owner for that matter. And you can apply different business rule sets to get different outputs. So again, the idea is that it's right time, right channel, right offer to the right guest or right potential guest to then drive a higher rate of return. Next slide, please. So actual intelligence. So this is all about using the data to drive better decisions, right? So consolidating the data into a singular data warehouse so that you're not going to 5 different systems and looking at 10 different spreadsheets to try and figure out what's working and what's not. Using a real BI platform to make some very educated decisions, have deeper insights, deeper segmentation beyond what we would traditionally consider just general segmentation within the hotel business. And then, making smarter decisions about expanding your reach. So you're spending your marketing dollars, which are all limited, regardless of how big your hotel is. We all have limited marketing budgets. So we're spending them smarter and driving higher rates of return, and then ultimately tracking that real time. So what's the success look like, and where are there areas that I can spend more and take away from the areas that are underperforming so I can drive that higher rate of return for our owners. Next slide. So, the PMS, there's a couple different ways. Think about PMS, how it guides marketing and outreach. So it can be dynamic messaging. So delivering that message that's personalized to the guest within a mobile app, or any type of experience. It could be a pre-arrival email, it could be an in-stay survey email. The campaigns are segmented and created appropriately. So if I'm a spa connoisseur, I'm not getting golf creative in the advertising you're serving me after I've stayed. Or in my email confirmation, I've booked golf reservations. The imagery reflects that, and it's not, food and wine per se. So again, using the data that we're capturing inside the PMS to help drive the guest experience from a personalization standpoint, a messaging standpoint, ultimately that drives more revenue, especially when you're talking about the ancillary revenue. Next slide. So service delivery, this is a big area of opportunity. We have a product called Engage that works with the PMS, and basically it can go out and when I come to the desk and I give my name and check me in as a front desk agent, it can go out and pull my rich guest profile data, and it can give, using machine learning, it can give that front desk agent some information. For example, I stayed there twice this month. Last time I was here, I made a dinner reservation. 2 times ago, I stayed here, I made a golf reservation. I might be a social influencer. Maybe I've got a million followers on Twitter. It can notify that desk agent of that information that's not in the PMS, but it works directly with the PMS. And there you marry the 2 sets of data together, and you allow the agent to have a conversation, and you give them the opportunity to drive ancillary revenue. So, and additional things like photos, pulling photos into that, and upsell history. Do they have a propensity to book suites? So have they booked one? If they haven't, should we offer it? But putting that intelligence right there in front of the agent versus them having to go dig for it. Next slide. So, I kind of close with this in terms of thinking. We've all experienced it. I experience it all the time traveling when I've stayed somewhere, recently, and they say, "Oh, it's the first time you stayed with us." And this is a thought based on what I was just talking about. But imagine that scenario where they actually welcome me back. Would you like a similar based on where you stayed last time? I see you enjoyed dinner last time at the restaurant. Would you like me to book a dinner reservation tonight? Whatever those touch points are, but it's about making an experience. We talk a lot about experiences in the hotel business and being experiential. That can start right at the desk, or really anywhere you can see your PMS and CRM data within the hotel. But the desk is a great place to start, and it creates a memorable experience versus a dissatisfier right away. It's like, yeah, I was here. I've been here 10 times this year already. And they don't remember me, regardless of the loyalty program. So I'll leave on that note. Free, any questions or comments there?
We have a question here that I want to follow up with. So how do you ensure the data integration stays accessible and accurate between systems?
From our perspective, we have a dedupe and merge and data QA system. It is automated, so it's always checking the connectivity, and then it identifies the flags. So it's looking for inconsistencies or problems, and then it'll set those aside. About 95% of the time, it can be machine handled, and then everything else gets put into a queue. Then it allows someone at the hotel or on our team to go in and actually validate. I'll say, yeah, that needs to be cleansed, or that needs to go, or that's not correct, it needs to be addressed. But basically through machine learning is the short answer. And you see that throughout, not only in hospitality CRM, but CRM in general.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that, Michael. We are going to turn things over to the audience. There are a couple questions here. Hyatt, I want to address the first one to you. What information can be passed over from the PMS to the CRM that allows for more personal communication and targeting campaigns?
With StayNTouch and our PMS, it's a pretty flexible guest profile. So you have the ability to know how many times the guest has stayed with you. You have the ability to create custom fields, in terms of data that you want to capture. And it can be a two-way connection, so you can push data and pull data. So it is really flexible. You do have a lot of autonomy when you're working with StayNTouch PMS to really get granular in terms of understanding the guest, what their preferences are, and then what you want to map to a system like a CENDYN, right? So that can funnel into your lifecycle marketing, that can funnel into your campaigns, and you can kind of mimic the profiles and the segments that you have in the CRM, in the PMS when you're capturing that data. So, yeah, it's really up to the hotel or to the hotelier, right, on what they want to push into the CRM from our PMS. So, pretty flexible.
All right, this one's for you, Michael. Do you have any ROI examples of the PMS CRM integrations?
We do. Yeah, we have quite a few. One in particular comes to mind. We have a client on the West Coast, a pretty large hotel, but unbranded, independent. And they made a conscious decision. It's been about 24 months ago now, but to abandon OTA business. And in order to do that, they really had to leverage their data. So they really needed to understand who their best guest was, and then understand the markets that they were doing well in terms of driving demand in and people were traveling from. And so, they really changed their thinking in terms of the quality of data they were capturing. They very much incented their desk agents to capture those emails, understanding that was one of the most valuable assets they could have. And again, not having the OTAs as a distribution channel, they were 100% reliant on direct. So that email address was a coveted piece of data. So making a concerted effort around that, and in high season for them, driving rate and not having the OTAs, and building those lookalike models we talked about earlier, they've been able to sustain not only not using the OTAs, but significant growth year over year over year. They're now in the third year of doing this, and not give up the ADR. So they hold their market share and gain the ADR. And we have those case studies available on our website, and perhaps as a follow-up, when this is distributed out, we could include a couple of those with the presentation.
Yeah, Casey, I know you're listening. If you want to send over a couple of those links, I can send them over within the follow-up email, just to give our audience a little bit more information there. So here's another question for the both of you. Is there integration at all with operation communication software like HotSauce, NoCross, Alice?
So I'll start off with that, and then Michael, I can pass it to you, I guess. PMS, we do have integrations with maintenance tracking, things like that are operational tools, whether it's HotSauce or NoCross. So we can connect to those. Within our PMS, we actually have a mobile housekeeping component that's really focused on increasing efficiency when it comes to turning rooms and then communicating with guests that are waiting for rooms. But if you want something that's a little bit more comprehensive when it comes to like managing work orders, things like that, then we do have connections with those systems that you mentioned, NoCross, HotSauce, and then Alice and some of the in-room engagement tools. Those are becoming a very popular. We've been seeing a lot of those coming up. So we have different types of integrations with those, whether it's their app, whether it's capturing specific data that's coming from the guests when they're using those tablets in the room. So that will vary depending on the system that you're using, Alice or some of the other ones out there.
Yeah, for us, similar answer. We work with all the aforementioned companies, and we have an API that works into our data center, so we can, if we don't have an existing relationship in terms of sharing data with those systems, if they have the ability to read or write from an API, we can address it that way. So short answer is yes, absolutely, we can do that.
All right, so this one will be addressed to you too, Michael. Due to different platforms between GDS, OTA, web bookings, and PMS, is it impossible to merge guest history each time the guest uses different platforms to book the room?
No, it's not impossible. You know, the reservations ultimately come into a C-res or a PMS, depending if you're one or multiple properties, and you know that comes in, and then through some pretty sophisticated dedupe and merge data science work on our side, we're able to look at that data and understand. You know, it could be just as simple as an email match or a first name, last name, email match, zip code. There's lots of different ways to look at that. But no, it's actually not as hard as you would think it is. A lot of the heavy lifting's already been done, and it's been done for years. I mean, the biggest problem player in that is the OTAs, because a lot of times they have a tendency to mask or hash the email. So we've got some ways to get around that, and we can pretty effectively. So we can get there.
Okay, great. So this one is for you, Hyatt. How does mobile check-in actually affect guest loyalty?
Well, so there's a couple of different aspects there. I mean, I think that, you know, what Michael's talking about in terms of getting to know and having that rich profile of the guests, that mobile engagement allows you to really understand some of their behavior and then communicate to them more effectively. Mobile check-in also allows you to capture things like phone numbers, emails, if you're getting doing like mobile check-in off your website, things like that. So there's definitely a direct correlation to loyalty and providing multiple touch points and engagement points with the guests so that you can know them more. Like, you know, I think Michael did a phenomenal example of giving some examples of what that rich profile means and how it impacts you guys as a hotel, or as a hotelier, you know, targeting people and knowing how to communicate more effectively and more concisely. So see mobile check-in or mobile engagement as an opportunity to, you know, enhance learning about the guests and really be able to complement that via your communication and being much more precise with, you know, what you're communicating to the guest.
All right, Michael, this is actually a follow-up to your last question. They want to know, so how do you address guest confidentiality in cases where data needs to be merged across the different platforms?
It's a complex question that's going to get more complex at the end of May when GDPR comes into play.
We're going to miss that.
But, you know, with that said, so if you have opt-in consent, so, you know, someone making a reservation, for example, does not give you consent to market to them. You have to garner that consent. So it's really important that systematically, whether it was in your booking engine, on your website, wherever you're collecting that guest information from, that you've got some sort of consent flag, and you know, you can prove that consent. That's going to be the big pieces of GDPR. So if you got the consent in play, it's not an issue, because you can go out and append, and a lot of the third-party data is publicly available. They've actually already sort of signed their life away when you signed up for things like Facebook and all the different social media platforms that sell and push your data out publicly on a regular basis. So consent's the big piece there. If you don't have consent, if you're just collecting reservation data, you technically can't market to them. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't create a personalized one-to-one experience for them and enhance their own email, you know, your transactional email conversations with them, or your mobile app conversations with them. But in terms of marketing them and using their personal data to go out and mine people that look like them, you can't do that without consent.
All right, so thanks for answering that. There is a bit of ambiguity there when it comes to some of the laws and regulations around GDPR. So, yeah. I mean, that's a great topic for a future webinar. So we might have some information on that coming soon as well, so stick out for that.
I will say that I called that before that was going to come up, but yeah, I mean, there's actually, if the people are listening, if you guys want to see like a checklist of some of the things that you should be preparing your hotel for, there's a checklist on our website that can kind of help preempt that compliance that's down the pike.
Yeah, we'll include that in the follow-up as well. All right, it looks like we have gone through all the questions. I want to thank our presenters for obviously giving all of their great insight, and I want to thank our audience for sticking with us the whole way through. So please know that we are going to be sending out a follow-up email with all the assets, including the recording, so look out for that. You'll get that within 24 hours. Thank you guys again. You have a good day.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Free.